For as long as I could remember, recycling has been around. In school, I was taught that recycling plays a very imperative role in making the world a better place, and it's important that we reuse materials such as paper, plastic, and glass. Today, mandatory recycling, which also includes composting, has reached cities all over the United States. Recycling is easy, it saves the environment, and at times you don't have to leave your house to do it. However, as I got older, I wanted to know, does recycling really reduce harm to the environment and human communities? Based off articles and scholarly sources, recycling creates new jobs, saves resources, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. In contrast, recycling is more expensive, has a negligible environmental impact, and wastes resources. In terms of green criminology, recycling also plays a big part in aiding human and environmental victimization. Regardless if recycling is effective or useless, it's important that we look at the pros and cons to form our own opinions. Recycling is seen as necessary and effective because it creates new jobs, saves resources, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. In terms of jobs, the process of recycling requires collection, sorting, processing, composting, and preparing materials. According to Law Researcher, even though two-thirds of the nation's waste goes into landfills, 85% of all the jobs associated with waste come from recycling and reuse activities. In 2016, EPA reported that 757,325 people were employed in recycling or related industries, generating more than $36 billion in wages and more than $6 billion in tax revenue. As recycling continues to increase, these numbers will rise. In places like Connecticut, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Oregon, recycling companies and programs have created new job openings while saving money and being sustainable. Due to recycling, we are able to save resources such as water and energy. When we recycle materials such as glass and aluminum, we are only using a small percent of the energy that it would take to make new glass and aluminum. One fact that put this in perspective was that if you recycle one aluminum can every day for a year, it saves the energy needed to run a television for 711 hours, roughly 4 hours a day for 6 months. Water is commonly reused for non-potable sources such as agricultural and landscape irrigation, industrial processes, and toilet flushing. Recycling water can meet most demands, however, it's important that it's adequately treated. Reusing water can also prevent and reduce pollution. Greenhouse gas emissions are also reducing due to recycling. According to the EPA, the recycling of paper products in 2014 produced a greenhouse gas reduction equivalent to removing 29.2 million cars from the road. When we recycle more, we are decreasing the use of landfills and incinerators, which are big contributors to methane gas emissions, and we are able to save and harvest trees, which help in maintaining the amount of carbon dioxide we have in the air. Although there are many benefits that come with recycling, there have also been arguments that recycling is not as beneficial as we think. Recycling is seen as unnecessary and ineffective because it's more expensive, has a negligible environmental impact, and wastes resources. For starters, the act of recycling can be more expensive than sending your garbage to landfills. According to Lori, recycling itself uses 3 times more resources than does depositing waste into landfills. With recycling, there are 2 different methods, single-stream and dual-stream recycling. Both methods of recycling are costly in different ways, and both require multiple garbage pickups a week, which can also contribute to pollution. Increased pollution is due to the amount of trucks that are needed for recycling. In places like Los Angeles, curbside recycling requires more trucks to be used for the same amount of waste. According to an article, 10 Ways Recycling Hurts the Environment, you can't separate garbage trucks from recycling trucks. There's no lesser evil. They both run on fossil fuels and they both produce exhaust. By adding more trucks to the fleet, no matter what their purpose, we're increasing air pollution. Recycling is considered a manufacturing process, so it still has negative environmental impacts associated with it. Recycling plants pollute as much as any manufacturing plant, may be worse because they use acids, chlorants, stabilizers, retardants, and lubricants during processing. With an increase in garbage pickup and recycling items such as plastic, glass, and paper, recycling wastes more resources than it saves. According to a Big Think article, EPA does not control the fluctuation of prices of recycled materials, and during hard economic times, many recycle programs will be adversely affected, which may lead to the recyclable materials being landfilled. In terms of green criminology, recycling plays a big part in aiding human and environmental victimization. According to green criminology, consumers may be unaware of or indifferent to how what they consume creates harm elsewhere for human and environments. Based on what I've learned about green criminology, environmental harms are linked to the denial of human rights. Marginalized groups are usually victims of environmental degradation, and recycling programs have been at the forefront, functioning as a place for community and income. Community-based recycling has three goals: to offer recycling services to communities and individuals, to offer recycling and environmental education to constituencies in ways that would mobilize people to push for broader social change, and to provide jobs for low-income urban populations. Unfortunately, unsustainable environmental practices have affected nature itself and marginalized groups globally. White and Heckenberg states that the social consequences of no work, no income, and no subsistence livelihood for significant numbers of people who work worldwide means that waste-producing and toxic forms of production are more likely to be accepted by the economically vulnerable. I have provided some pros and cons in relation to recycling and how it affects human communities and the environment. Although everyone may have a different perception on recycling, we cannot deny that it plays an important role in our society. Recycling, even if done perfectly, also won't be enough to address our environmental problems. Deeper changes are needed, of course, rethinking how much we consume, where we live, how we get around, how we design products. But getting people to modify behavior in small positive ways has proven effective in spurring bigger lifestyle changes. Whether it creates new jobs and reduces greenhouse gas emissions or is more expensive and wastes resources, it is imperative that we educate ourselves on the topic of recycling regardless of our view on it. Recycling begins with people, and the biggest challenge for recycling lies in educating and motivating the public opinion whom successful source separation depends.